Hey, how's everybody doing? Thank you for stopping by. You're with me at the Common Man, hanging out again. I'm just looking at a few things, and I start to observe something. I don't claim to be a politician. I don't claim to be anything really. I'm retired. I'm just looking at things. When you retire, that's what you have time to do. Some people sit on their front porch and watch cars go by. I like to look at movement in terms of human lives and seeing what's happening. Um, I've been looking at our government, just watching, listening to the things that they say. And I had recorded a few things talking about having a conversation with ChatGPT because it took me right to the facts as quickly as possible. But in doing that, I began to think to myself, well, how do they stand up to actually being what we call a Christian nation? I'm not going to get into trying to preach. That is not my thing. I mean, I barely go to church. I'll be real honest. But I've always looked at Christianity seriously because I understand that God does exist. I understand that even through Islam, God does exist. I understand through Buddhism that God does exist. And I can go on and on and on, which is something that I find amazing is that the commonalities that we have with so many commonalities that the spiritual world can't seem to get together and bring peace, that the peace we need. Anyway, I was reading through the Bible. Actually, it's the Amplified Bible. So I don't want you to think that I'm making this stuff up on my own. This is just me reading through the Bible. I was in the book of Matthew, around chapter 5, looking at verse 9 through 11. Now, I'm reading from the Amplified version, so it may not match up with what you have. Anyway, it says, "Blessed, spiritually calm, with life joy and God's favor, are the makers and maintainers of peace, for they will express God's character and be called the sons," and I'm going to add daughters of God. Blessed, comforted by inner peace and God's love, are those who are persecuted for doing that which is morally right, for theirs is the kingdom of God. It's the kingdom of heaven, and yes, of God. Blessed, morally courageous, and spiritually alive with life joy and God's goodness are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil things against you because of your association with God. Now, I'm not trying to preach or anything. I'm just looking at this and I'm trying to match up the behaviors with um, what you can actually see. I'm matching up this word as I see a government personnel respond. So in this case, I'm looking at the makers of peace. You know, I often heard that our current president wants to have a Nobel Peace Prize. So maybe some of this information can help him should he ever stumble upon it. Anyway, it says that blessed are the peacekeepers and maintainers of peace, because they're expressing God's will. It said here, blessed are those who are comforted with the inner peace and God's love, and those who are persecuted for doing the right moral thing. You want to be morally right. And so as I look at this and I look at behaviors, and I ask myself the question based on what I'm seeing on the news. And in case you know, I try to watch them all. I try to get my opinion not only from CNN and PBS, but I look at Fox as well. And I'm trying to match up their behavior with what they claim to be. What we all, well, let me just leave that alone because I have some Muslim friends and Buddhist friends, and I'm enjoying their spirituality as well. But anyway, as I look at this and I try to match it up with what's going on in our country, see, if you want to figure out who's right and who's wrong, you claim to be a Christian country. Well, who is living up to the Christian values? The way that, it's not difficult to understand what God is asking. If God says peace, peace means you're not trying to jam somebody up for what they have. If you will be the one to receive all kind of accolades because you're keeping the peace amongst others. You see, that's how you get that award that is being sought after. Anyway, it said, "Blessed morally, those blessed, morally courageous, and spiritually alive with the life joy in God's goodness are you when people insult you and persecute you." And on the news, I only see one side insulting the other side. I mean, yes, they're tense, they're stressed, but I don't see. Um, I see one side vilifying so many Americans, and it makes me wonder, as the song used to say. It just makes me wonder: are you really Christian? I'm not saying people are not. Perhaps this will help guide some people back to where they need to be. And this particular one, I'm going to skip over to Matthew's 5 and 20. It says, "For I say to you that unless your righteousness, your uprightness, moral essence is more than that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter into the kingdom of heaven." So scribes and Pharisees back in the day when this was written were mainly your lawyers, your kind of legality. I'm gonna legally make this right for you. And I see this going on in what we call our Congress. And what side is mimicking the behaviors that Jesus asked us to do? And yes, these are Jesus' words. It comes from the Beatitudes. Anyway, have a great day. Glad to see you. We're going to always have some interesting talks, and let's see where this goes. Have a great. Bye.